Do you think the government used Jeffrey Epstein as an agent, used him to set honey traps, used him to manipulate rivals or other powerful people to get the ends that they want?
I have never heard of somebody with a serious federal case getting dropped just like that. Who stopped the prosecution? Who told Andrew Acosta it's above his pay grade? Yeah. There was not a place on the island, not even in the trees where there wasn't a camera. His value dropped. There's no use in him anymore. And then at that point, he mysteriously dies. Is that a coincidence? And his lawyers are telling, by the way, we're going to get you bail. We got some shot. He's going to kill himself the next day?
No, he's planning on what country he's going to flee to, I think.
Possibly. He had 4 passports on him, by the way. He had an Israeli passport ready. He had a Canadian passport ready. He had all these passports ready to go.
Is that right?
I don't have any idea how hard it is to get a fake passport. It's almost impossible unless you have a government connection. People that have hope, whether it's real or not, they don't commit suicide.
Right.
And he had hope. So all I'm saying is it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense at all. Yeah. Should we talk about Jeffrey Epstein?
Did you hear, by the way, you know what's going on with that, the latest news on that, right? So, you know what's really interesting to me? Nobody ever says, how did Jeffrey Epstein get his money? How it all started back, you know, how this math guy all of a sudden became almost a billionaire. He was worth like $500 million.
He's a fascinating figure, right? Like he's infamous, of course. So many people hate him and think he's the most sinister man. But can we go back? Like, do we know about his beginnings? I know a little bit.
He was born in I think the Bronx.
Jeffrey Epstein, we're talking about.
Yeah, his parents, I believe, were survivors of the Holocaust.
Okay.
And he was a really brilliant kid. He was a big chubby kid.
So he's a first generation American.
Yes.
Is that me or you?
Me.
Cool. No worries. Let me see.
Yeah, he's first generation American, and he did really well. He went to school, excelled. I think he skipped 2 grades 2 times in a row. Something ridiculous like that.
He did? So he's a bright kid.
Really, really, really bright. And he basically wound up teaching as a high school teacher. That's where I think a lot of the signs were coming out. There was a lot of reports that said he was behaving inappropriately. And then he took off from there and he went to...
Let's stay there for a sec. He's 20 years old.
Yeah.
He's teaching calculus and physics.
Something like
That's not that easy. That's what he's teaching at the
Dalton
elite...
School.
The elite...
Yeah.
Is that an all-girls school? No.
I'm not sure.
He's a 20-year-old man. This is like... Interestingly, it's the 70s, which is the party era, right?
Yeah.
It's 1976, I think, is at the exact year he's teaching at the Dalton School, as you said, a very prestigious school in New York.
Yes.
But he gets the job without having a college degree.
Right.
A little bit odd.
Well, actually, he did get into college. He got into Cooper Union, which is the only college in America that I know of that's free, and they only major in engineering and architecture. He got in there, but he dropped out.
Okay.
So he doesn't have a college education, but he was really smart. He started working at the Dalton School. And then, you know, from what my understanding is, based on my research, he just started acting very inappropriately. And that's where the signs started, that the predatory behavior started at that point.
Right. But if you're going to go one step into the conspiracy theories about Jeffrey Epstein, of which there are many, then it is true, I believe factually, that he did not have a college degree at the time he was hired to teach in high school. So that it's the birth of a little bit of the conspiracy myth around him, which is that he's super charming and somehow gets powerful people to do things for him, and we don't know how.
Well, that's interesting that you should say that. So I know how, based on reading the indictments, and I'm just formulating.
That's not a good way to find out, but yeah,
but
it is for.
But indictments,
it means he's in trouble.
Indictments are accurate. So when I read a legal document, the only thing that I trust is what is filed in court because it goes through several filters. It's not like something that you could post on social media and verify, and it's not automatically verifiable. Courts have a filter system. They have evidentiary systems. So once it gets into the judge's hands...
Right. So we're going to get to the facts.
Rest assured, whatever's in there is as close to the truth as possible.
Okay. So let's pick up, he's at the school. You're saying there's rumors he's acting inappropriately. I'm saying it's 1976. It's freaking... It's a very party-filled atmosphere amongst the youth culture. He's 20. The kids are 18 or younger.
Yeah.
Reports say there were some underage girls. We don't know what he did. Is there any actual factual evidence of him wrongdoing as a teacher with students?
Not that I know of.
We don't know.
But we do know that Alan Greenspan, who was the federal chair, he was at the time the federal chair, head of the federal chair, And he got Jeffrey Epstein a job because he was very impressed with, his math skills. He was his daughter's teacher. So he got him a job at, I think, Bear Stearns, and then he wound up doing
from
something.
being a high school teacher, he becomes an investment banker in training?
Yeah, he basically started teaching, and then he went to work for Bear Stearns in 1976, and he started training, and then he wound up leaving there because of some undisclosed reason. But
Well, and then he started his own investment firm.
he started financially consulting, after that. And then I think that he, based on what I was reading, that he befriended, and I think he was basically another Bernie Madoff, except a lot smarter.
Okay.
I think he was Bernie Madoff with a calculus degree, with a genius mind, and a taste for younger girls.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I think he was, in his mind, he wasn't a predator. He made that very clear in the audio tapes that I listened to. He says for example, he points out that why is it fine in other countries where men marry 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds,
Right.
but why is it such a crime to have sex with a 17-year-old?
Right. In certain religions, it's actually fine and allowed for younger girls to marry older men. We've seen it sort of under the guise of the religion. But we all understand morally, ethically, we know that there's a major issue with that, and we want to protect it, which is why we have so many laws against it, right?
Well, the moral
here
culture,
here in the West.
the moral culture is different.
It is. And so we get a taste of that during his years as a high school teacher. Then as an investment banker, we know that there were around the year of 2000, I want to say 2003, 4, and 5 are the most culpable years, right? Those are what it seems to me all the cases were based on. Was Miami or near Florida? Where was it? Let me look it up.
Well, he was, 2003, there was something going on with New York Magazine. He was doing a lot of business with different people, including film producer Harvey Weinstein, for whatever that's worth, who was also convicted of sexual crimes. But I think where it gets interesting is when he meets Lex Wexner, who is the owner of Victoria's Secret. And, I've never heard this as being a lawyer, Tony, but if you are worth almost $500 million, or you have the empire, the Victoria's Secret empire, why would you sign away your power of attorney to Jeffrey Epstein? Think about that. He signed away his entire power of attorney, including his financial assets, to Jeffrey Epstein. What I think was going on, based on reading the indictments, the one that Acosta filed in Florida, Andrew Acosta, who was the AUSA at the time, the assistant U.S. attorney in Florida, and who was also nominated by Donald Trump to be, I think, secretary in his department. He let it go. And when he let it go, what he said when they asked him, because he let the whole case just drop. And I just use logic sense. This is what he this is what he said to the news, and you could Google this. They told me this was above my pay grade. The federal government told him it was above his pay grade.
This is Alex Acosta.
Yeah.
He's a federal prosecutor in Florida.
And what's interesting is Google Alex Acosta leaving federal building with Jeffrey Epstein lawyers, and you'll see every single one of those people that were wearing a tie. And just for the public, if you want to ever spot an agent, who an agent is, they always wear collegial striped ties, 99.9% of the time. And all of those people...
Is that right?
Yeah. And all those people in the photo were wearing collegial striped ties. They wear white shirts, conservative suits, because they're a conservative organization. And either it's a coincidence that everybody was walking out of that place looking like that, looking like agents, or they were agents. So what I'm telling you is, I think that I can't make a connection direct. There's no direct evidence, but I can say that I believe that he was working somehow with the government, setting up people. It makes complete sense because you had Bill Clinton.
What year are we talking? 2003, 4, 5? Because 05, he comes under investigation for the first time by authorities in Florida.
Yeah. So the first criminal case was in 2005, right? That was the Palm Beach, Florida case against that he alleged a 14-year-old girl massaged her and apparently engaged in some sort of sexual assault.
And multiple girls were involved. I think the claims are not only that multiple girls were there giving inappropriate massages, but also that they were then used to recruit their friends.
Right. And what he was doing essentially.
And they were paid.
And the key word massage really meant, I'm going to touch you. I'm going to have sex with you possibly. That's what massage meant in Jeffrey Epstein's mind. a massage.
Is that true? And was he charged with that though? Well, because
yes. She was charged.
I think his criminal defense attorney somehow negotiated his way out of being charged with intercourse with underage girls, and he took the lighter charge of soliciting a minor for prostitution.
That's the federal case with Andrew Costa I was telling you about. So the Florida case, they lowered all the charges. They stopped the entire investigation in its tracks. And then how did this come back up when Virginia Gouffre, who was a 16 or 17-year-old,
one of the accusers, right? One of many accusers,
right? Who allegedly also slept with Prince Andrew. She brought a lawsuit through David Boyce, Boise, who was a big-time lawyer. Okay. And they basically
Bush v. Gore, right?
And they basically made
part of Bush v. Gore.
Yes, Bush v. Gore. And they made an argument that wait a second, the whole thing with Epstein is illegal, and they were so smart. They said the whole thing is voided. Everything that Epstein agreed to is illegal because the victims have a right under the Victims' Right Act to speak in federal court and tell the judge how they feel, and the judge has a right to take that into account.
Right. So you're talking about Epstein did he have a great legal team or what?
Well, yeah, Alan Dershowitz.
Okay. So they negotiated.
He had the dean from, who was the person that prosecuted? Kenneth Starr.
Okay.
Yeah, Kenneth Starr. I mean, he had politically well-connected lawyers and also intellectually diligent lawyers. So he had an amazing legal team.
And they persuaded Alex Acosta, the DA in Florida, to not bring federal charges.
I don't think they did. I don't think they have the power to do that.
How did
I have no attorney on the planet could ever do that.
You can't negotiate with the other side to bring lesser charges and take a plea deal?
You can't negotiate to get a lot of charges dropped just like that. Not in federal court. That's never happened. And it never will. That's why I'm telling you, I've never heard of that. The only time that would happen is when you have a confidential informant. Do you know what that is?
Confidential?
A confidential informant in the streets is called a snitch. So Jeffrey Epstein was a snitch. He was basically an asset and being used by the government. But we're going
way back. You think by 03, 04, 05, he was already a government asset, perhaps, in Florida. So the theory is he was there, why? To catch, as a honey trap, to catch powerful people?
Well, he had an amazing Rolodex of very, very powerful people. And in his house, they found a plethora of photos and that's going to be disclosed recently, of people in uncompromising sexual positions. Photos, you know about the Bill Clinton photo. There's a picture of Bill Clinton with semen on his dress. He's wearing a dress and he looks like Monica Lewinsky as soon as you walk in.
That's a painting.
Right, painting. But
let's be clear, it's not a picture.
It's a painting, right. But think about what that painting says. And Bill Clinton has been to that place many times before. We have witnesses that say that. That means I own you.
I've heard that commented on. That's an interesting take. I've heard that, and people say it means you're my...
I own you.
You're my blank.
And he had a lot of people that he owned, whether it was Bill Gates, whether...
It could be. Maybe some crazy person did that painting and he loved it and paid an ungodly amount of money for it. I have no idea.
I don't think so.
It could be. But
I don't think Bill Clinton, who loves his legacy and shares his tech.
Here's what throws me off a little bit about this, because when you said let's do a podcast on this, I kind of had to catch up on it. And as a regular person, what you would think about Epstein and the headlines you hear in the news, you would think island, girls on an island.
Yeah, St. James Island,
St. James, Little St. James or something like that. He called it Little St. Jeff. Espionage, honey traps.
Right.
Planes, private jets, celebrities, islands.
Right.
Court case. Ghislaine Maxwell, is that how you say her name?
Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell, yeah.
Convicted. He commits suicide. But come to find out, none of it has to do with his island. None of it has to do with his jets. It goes back to this entire case. I was shocked when I dove deeper into it. I'm like, if you listen to the media, you would think this entire thing is about the island and who he took there and girls he trafficked, but it's not. It's about his time in Florida, living in his mansion as an investment banker or whatever kind of investor he was, bringing allegedly women who were not of age there for massages that were sexual in nature, right? Correct? All the cases, the entire case is about that.
Well, that's partially true, but they were going to add more charges. The amendment, when he got arrested again, when he came back from France or wherever it was, where they arrested him on the airplane tarmac, I believe they added counts. It wasn't just the old counts. I think they amended it. They added a lot. They added a lot of
'Cause
allegations.
I
I could tell you them right now.
I'm curious. You would know better than me. I hadn't been able to find anything of like more recent charges. And in my head, I was like well, if the headline is Bill Clinton flew with Jeffrey Epstein in an airplane, why is that really a relevant matter at all if it doesn't involve the island and if none of these charges?
No, of course it doesn't involve him, but they're, and it wasn't a part of the case. They weren't going to mention Bill Clinton in a part of the case. That's more sensational media stuff that you
really
see.
Is, and most people think there's a list coming out, and when are we going to see the names on this list? Oh my God, who's going to be on the list? What happened to that? It kind of fizzled.
Well,
out.
they did release a list,
but nobody cared.
Well, it was basically Chris Rock and I don't know, some people flying here and there.
So they were on his plane, but if is the plane material in any
not
way
Chris
to the?
Rock, I'm
to
sorry,
the,
Chris Tucker. Sorry. Go ahead.
and a lot of other people named Chris. I'm 100% sure. But like, is it relevant to the criminal case against him, his jet and where it flew and the island? Or is it really about Florida and 03 to 05 and trafficking girls?
It's about human trafficking. So let me explain to you. Anytime you take somebody from point A to point B, and the United States could assert jurisdiction, and St. James Island is a United States district, right?
Virgin Islands?
Virgin Islands, right?
Yeah.
So we have authority to assert a human trafficking violation. And that's what they were asserting with Jeffrey Epstein. They were basically saying you're bringing girls back and forth. They weren't particularly saying that it happened on Little James, but they were going to use that to show what they call a modus operandi. And a modus operandi means it's his method of operation. This is what he does.
His MO.
His MO. This is what he does. And it could be used, even though it's not evidence, it could be used as a prior bad act or something to show a common scheme or plan.
Got it. But it wasn't the facts in the case, though. They weren't looking at the island yet, it seems to me. Or did they go investigate?
Well, they did it after the fact. After he died, they went in, they got everything. I can't tell you the timeline, whether or not at the time they had all that information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, here's what's interesting to me about Epstein. So Epstein, first of all, the murder itself, or I should say the suicide itself, doesn't appear to me to be a suicide. Dr. Bodden, who was a very, very well-known, Dr. Michael Bodden, I believe is his name, forensic pathologist, who was working on the O.J. Simpson case, he's world-renowned, did a second autopsy, and he basically said if he tried to kill himself, he would not have had the injuries that he had.
Right.
I believe he had a broken clavicle, which he said wouldn't have been caused by somebody leading forward. That would never happen. He's done thousands, over his career. He's never seen it. The odds of that are very, very slim to none. Number one.
You've worked with such forensic expert witnesses.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Dr. Michael Bodden, but
you find him credible?
Yes, absolutely. Everybody. I mean, the government uses him. If the government uses an expert witness, I find that to be a good filter. So I do find him to be credible. And also there are other things that make me believe that Epstein was working for the government. The way in which he died, it was so, I've had a lot of clients in jail, a lot. None of them have ever died in jail. None, zero. It's very hard to commit suicide in jail. And if you take a look at those photos, he had a lot of bed sheets and he'd have to literally just hang himself, like push himself down. He'd have to push himself down off the bedpost. And coincidentally, nobody's there. Coincidentally, the guards are sleeping. And coincidentally, everything that he knows is gone. Nobody's going to ever find out.
Wasn't there a coincidence with the cameras as well?
Yeah, a coincidence with the cameras. The camera just happened to just kill the feed. The feed was gone.
How often is the feed out?
I've never heard of it. So I'm not telling you, I'm not a conspiratorial person, but unfortunately, suing the government myself, I have exposed conspiracies. I've exposed police officers planting evidence on my clients. Raw cocaine, beating them up, lying in police reports. So do I think that the government could conspire to do something? Of course. Do I think that the government could have used Epstein as an asset to get information from Bill Clinton or whoever? Of course. Do I think that he was killed by somebody important? Maybe. All I know is that the way he died, according to the second autopsy, couldn't have happened. So my belief is that Epstein was knee deep into his web of people that he was trapping, and anybody could have killed him. Anybody in jail could have killed him. He had a lot of enemies.
what were some potential ways that he was trapping people? I mean, we've all heard of the art of kompromat is what the Russians called it. It goes way back. Soviets apparently are infamous for doing this. The Soviet secret police, I think, had some innovations in this regard. It seems like when you read up on it, where they really learned how to use mostly younger, attractive women to lure powerful men, but sometimes the other direction as well, a man luring a woman. But they would lure the target, and one of two things, I guess, either persuade them to reveal secret information, persuade them to give up secrets they shouldn't give, maybe because they feel like they're in love, or maybe they're in lust, or maybe they're just in the heat of passion, or maybe they really trust you through that physicality of it all. Or another route, they would use it to get compromising information on somebody, a picture of them in an inappropriate position when they're married with a different woman, maybe a younger woman, a video, but secretly filming or taping people. This is Soviet sort of secret methodology. So is this what we're talking about? I mean, do we think that the island could have been a trap of this sort, a ginormous honey trap?
Well, Bill Clinton denies that he's ever been to the island. And if you asked his chef, who was there 300 days out of the year, he saw Bill Clinton. So obviously he's lying. So why is he lying?
Wait, there's a chef from the island who says he's seen Bill Clinton?
An employee that if you Google it, either a chef or a maintenance person that's there, and he said, I saw Bill Clinton all the time.
Really?
So I don't know what
somebody's lying.
And by the way, Thing was there too. Who was the smartest person in the world that just passed away? My God, I just blanked out. The professor from Caltech.
Yes, and many astrophysicists.
Yeah, there were a lot of people. Stephen Hawking.
Yes,
he was there.
Yes,
and now there's rumor to it that he did special favors for Stephen Hawking as well.
But
I don't know what the intent of that island was, but I do know there were a lot of underage girls there. A lot. They've all come forward, and people knew that they were underage. The pilots knew, the staff knew, everybody knew. It was out in the open.
It's easy to paint a real dark image in the mind thinking about this. Really dark. I mean, where it's just all these older, powerful men from politics, art, entertainment, science.
Tony,
but then exclusively underage girls. And is this over? I think, though, we could get a little dramatic with these imaginations of it, and like maybe could it be? I just want to try and really dig deep into it. That it seems like whatever he was, and the underage thing was a problem for him. This is clear. He had this issue. Also, he was a connector of people, and he was addicted to and enthralled by powerful people, mostly powerful men. Astrophysicists, powerful in their field, financiers,
princes,
artists,
Mossad,
people with money.
How about Mossad?
Mossad, secret agents, interesting. Physicists, right? Mm-hmm. And so he liked to bring these people and show off his own ability to connect. Maybe he didn't have the intellectual capacity they did. Maybe he did, but I don't know that we've seen evidence that he did. Seems like he didn't.
What's interesting is, do you know Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, who was a big media global billionaire?
Okay.
He mysteriously died on a boat with Ghislaine Maxwell. His death was, if you could Google this, was also related somehow to a clandestine operation to take him out. He was also known to be an asset for Mossad. So Ghislaine Maxwell's, as soon as he died...
He was an actual agent.
Well, as soon as he died, the first thing that Ghislaine Maxwell did is she started destroying documents immediately, as soon as he died.
Super sus.
So...
Obviously.
And she ordered the entire staff to destroy everything as soon as he died, number one. Number two, it's very well known that he was a double agent, that Maxwell worked not only for Mossad, he worked for many different organizations. I mean, he was like an influencer, a huge network influencer. I've read his books, by the way. It's really interesting. And I've read books about Robert Maxwell. So
does he go into secret sort of agent stuff?
Yes. I think that Epstein was pretty much another Maxwell, except with the taste for younger women. No different than Maxwell. So, by the way, Maxwell also had a taste for younger women, but not that young.
So did he groom his son-in-law to be a secret agent?
It's not a son-in-law. After Maxwell died, Ghislaine had nobody to take care of her, and she fell into the arms of Jeffrey Epstein, who was this young, handsome person. Okay.
Interesting.
And she was a socialite, basically. And she basically was introduced to Epstein, and they had a sexual relationship for a while. And she was in love with him, and she wanted to marry him, but she knew she's not going to be able to marry him. So she basically gave him what he wanted. He had an appetite for young girls. She brought in the young girls.
So this is conjecture, but is it possible that she saw echoes of her father in this guy?
And that's what the book said that I read, that she saw a lot of her father. She saw him as not only somebody that could take care of her, or not only a father figure, but she found him attractive, and he was a smart guy.
Everybody found him attractive.
He's a good-looking guy.
But he just charmed everybody. Regardless, I mean, he is good-looking. Just if you look at him as a sort of like telegenic,
right?
But he's also seems to have been able to talk the pants off. Anyway.
And he was very smart, and he was a jet setter, and he had everything everybody would want in life, right?
This is where I go back to, he did teach calculus and physics, so he's not a complete fraud, right?
No,
I mean, in terms of intellectual capacity. However, I guess in digging into this, I did hear Eric Weinstein on the Joe Rogan podcast talking about one sort of, I guess, seemed like a traumatic, somewhat strange interaction he had with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm like multiple layers of hearsay, obviously, now.
Sure.
But I am recounting it the way I honestly remember, is that Mr. Eric Weinstein felt that Jeffrey Epstein was a complete fraud after talking to him a little bit about markets, finance, money, numbers.
Well, he never made a trade, not one trade on Wall Street in all those years. So how did he make his money? He wasn't trading. They looked at the trades. I believe it was a fraud. Listen, one thing that's good about being a criminal defense attorney, I could smell a fraudster from far away, because I've interviewed thousands of people that have committed frauds. I've interviewed thousands of liars. I've interviewed thousands of thieves, rapists, murderers.
Okay.
I have, even though I don't have a psychology degree, I did study some psychology in college and my master's and in after, but I could tell you that there's like a profile. And Epstein meets the profile, and the profile is this. He's a BS artist that is extremely intellectual and manipulative. And I think
just smart enough, smart enough to get you right there and manipulate you if you're Stephen Hawking.
He's a sociopath. That's what he is. He's a sociopath with no empathy for anybody else. He has narcissistic personality disorder because he has a grandiose feeling of himself. He believes the world revolves on himself.
Now, are we alleging this, or have this been diagnoses that have been put forth in this case in any way?
I'm not a psychologist, but I'm reading all of that.
This is what people think about him.
This is what I think about him. If you want R.J. Manuelian's opinion, this is just my opinion. I think he has all of these things based on communicating with a lot of my clients in jail and what I see. And look at the facts. The guy's a billionaire, supposedly. The guy's made a very smart investor, never made one trade. Does that make sense? Use your common sense.
So where did he get his money?
From Wexner, Lex Wexner.
There's also another billionaire who gave him something like $165 million for consulting fees over a course of a few years.
Right.
Like for giving him financial advice.
Right. But
that doesn't sound like good financial advice.
Lex Wexner. There's two theories behind Lex Wexner. Either he was having, and he was asked, I'm not just saying this because I'm speculating. He was asked in a deposition, are you having sex with Lex Wexner? Are you a bisexual? They asked Jeffrey Epstein that. Why would a lawyer ask that question? Think about that. Because why the hell would Lex Wexner give him all the money? Either he's got something on Lex Wexner, like some honeypot, some information, some intel that could completely destroy him, or he's having sex with the guy and he's going to exploit him that way. But nobody would give up an empire, okay, to somebody. That's never happened. So use logical sense. Either the guy's got something on him or is banging him. Either way, he got the power of attorney from Lex Wexner, and that's where he got all his money.
That's it. I've never heard that theory before, but I have. Yeah, no. I'm not saying it's not.
You could look at the deposition. I'm just telling you. They asked him in deposition, "Have you had sex with Lex Wexner?" And he looked at the attorney with disgust. He was like, "No." Are you bisexual? He paused. He looked down. He looked up, and he said, "No." This line of questioning was being asked because it perplexes lawyers like me why you, a billionaire, would give me a lot of money. Either I'm having relations with you and you trust me that much that we're that close, or I'm a genius and you trust me that much. But the second part is nobody gives the genius all their money. Okay. Nobody gives Warren Buffett all their money. Nobody gives Charlie Munger all their money. You give a portion of your money, but not all of your money. And that's why I think that he was duped. I think Lex Wexner was duped. I just don't know why.
Interesting. I mean, something to dig into there. And if we back that up and let's just dip our toe on the conspiracy side, there's a category of events where we can say, why is this powerful person doing that for Jeffrey Epstein? Why?
Right.
There's nothing in it for them.
That's right.
If you go back, it's like, why is he being hired to teach at the high school by the headmaster when he doesn't have a college degree?
I can answer that question. So he did a lot of lying on resumes, and he got caught. He got caught. Yeah, he got caught. So they kept him on board only because
maybe cover their own face.
He
at that
admitted
point.
that he wouldn't have got the job at the high school had he not lied on the resume. But once he was there, he explained it, and they forgave him.
So he lies, and he gets a powerful person to get him into a position. He's in.
Later on, Alan Greenspan, yes.
Why
so he lies initially, he gets a pass, and then he gets into Bear Stearns.
Got a pass.
Right.
Now, 2 years later, he's hired at Bear Stearns.
Right.
Still no college degree as far as I know.
Right. He dropped out of Cooper Union. That's right.
How's that work? Why are powerful people doing things for him?
Well, he has math degree, he has calculus. So Tony, he must know what he's doing.
Or is
I have no idea.
Still playing the system, manipulating.
I have no idea.
Charming the pants off people somehow.
He's very, very charming. Maybe,
or literal honey traps.
But he didn't last very long. He didn't do well at Bear Stearns. Maybe they gave him a chance, and then when Alan Greenspan realized he's not doing a good job, coupled with his inappropriate behavior, he got the boot.
Okay. Next, he starts his own firm.
Yes.
So
an investment consulting.
You brought up Lex Wexner, but
Yes.
there's also another gentleman, Leon Black. Mr.
Okay.
Leon Black, the billionaire co-founder of Apollo Global Management, personal close friend of Jeffrey Epstein, has never been charged with or convicted of a crime. We should be clear about that. But the only strange things he has been accused of he's been accused by some women of inappropriate things, nothing that he's been convicted of. I don't even need to bring it up. But apparently, he gave Mr. Jeffrey Epstein $158 million in the course of 2012 to 2018 for tax and estate planning advice. So imagine that. This very wealthy man gave Jeffrey Epstein $158 million in fees between 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Wouldn't you like to be paid like that? That's 7 years.
Why does that surprise you? A lot
6 years.
A lot of people gave Bernie Madoff money, even though he was clearly committing fraud.
But they put their money with him to invest. This guy paid Epstein $158 million for tax and estate planning advice.
Because he's saving,
those are fees.
But he's saving that person more than the 160 that is giving him. Does that make sense? So he's paying him 160 to save a hell of a lot more. But that doesn't make any sense. No.
Potentially.
No, but that doesn't make any sense. But that's what he's saying. It makes zero sense. It just means to me that all these people are either complete morons or he has something on them.
He can't be a complete moron.
Then he has something on him.
Unless it's mommy and daddy's money, which it could be, I guess.
I'm being facetious. That's why I'm saying there's something going on.
That could be a victim of
a more pernicious scenario that you and I don't know about, which, by the way, going back to what you said, so what are we going to find out? They already got all those items from Jeffrey Epstein's safe recently. So we don't have it on the podcast right now. We'll do a follow-up and we'll find out what documents and photos. That's what I want to see. What documents does he have? The videos are out. They've been reviewed. Once that comes out, then the snowball starts rolling down.
Which documents are we talking about?
There's videos, sex videos. There's
from where?
He had 4 passports on him, by the way. He had 4 different passports in his safe. He had different documents. How do you get a passport? Think about that. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get a fake passport? It's almost impossible unless you have a government connection. And he had an Israeli passport ready, he had a Canadian passport ready, he had all these passports ready to go.
Is that right?
And he had the videos and everything set, his what I call his blackmail videos and his blackmail stuff ready.
Where is all this?
We're going to wait. It's coming out. It's going to be coming out very soon. The only thing that came out recently before the podcast was the list of people, which was a little bit of a dud. But we did find out some people like Chris Tucker were on there. They have some photos of Chris Tucker on the plane putting his arms around 2 women. It's really not as big as we all thought.
To me, I think so many powerful people flew with him just because he offered them a private jet. He gave them a ride. And
a free ride.
A free ride.
Yeah.
Or he said, come stay on my lovely island and have breakfast in bed and enjoy the water. So that's why we all feel a little bit like it's a dud when the list comes out, because I'm like, okay, so this name, that name, fine.
But what's not going to be a
dud doesn't tell me really anything that they did wrong.
But the videos, when they come out, if there are videos, that'll explain everything. If they have obviously a video of Bill Clinton doing something inappropriate.
Have we heard that there might be videos?
Yes. Well,
tell me about it because I haven't been able to dig any of that up. Like,
right.
It's like the UAP thing. Let's see a video.
All right. Well, here, when we're talking about Epstein, and again, I didn't see the video. I'm not confirming the video, but my understanding is, based on reading legal documents, that they're searching or they have in their possession video evidence and that they are reviewing it.
They being the prosecutors in what case? He's dead and she's...
No, not the prosecutors. The people that have picked up his, his island got sold, right? So
yes,
they sold everything on his island.
$60 or $65 million.
Yeah, so there's material in there that they found that the government is now allegedly reviewing.
Okay. Is it part of an existing criminal case or lawsuit?
No, I think it's because there's no criminal case. It's dead.
There's Ghislaine.
No, she's already been convicted. You can't.
She has, yeah.
So it's double jeopardy. I think they're just collecting this information. And I read it online somewhere. But to go back to what you're saying, once this information comes out, then it'll make sense when we connect the dots. What does he have? These documents have not been put forward to the media. Only thing that came out recently is that list of who's on the airplane.
Right.
That's it.
To me, he has
a safe in his house with a lot of things in his safe. If you Google Epstein. And then what was his island name? St. James?
Little St. James.
Little St. James. And then if you put down his bank, his vault. Yeah. So, or I should say, there's a thing in there that they was seized. I'm trying to look for it now, but he had a vault in there, and they have the vault, and they're going through it. I don't know what they found, but it shouldn't really surprise anybody that has got a safe. So
not at all.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is to what degree are other people involved with any of this illegal activity? I'm just not sure.
We don't know.
Nobody
knows.
It literally may be that none of them are, but maybe a couple of them got caught because he wanted to manipulate them. But most of them just kind of went there and had fun. I mean...
Oh, I do know what videos they have. So there was videos on the island that he was 24-hour recording. That's the CCTV videos. That's the videos that they have. So I know they have that for a fact. And they reviewed it. And on a documentary and a book that I've read called The Filthy Rich, which they made a documentary on, one of the victims said that there was not a place on the island, not even in the trees, where there wasn't a camera. So I know the government has or is attempting to get that video. Now, what they're going to do with it, I have no idea.
So let's go deep into that. If they do have this footage from all the trees at Little St. James,
right,
of every big politician, physicist, entertainment person, or journalist, or activist, or political rival interacting with inappropriately on the island, maybe they're not going to let that out. Maybe they're going to use that to the full extent of its power. Maybe they're going to use it to extort all these people and just affect policy and affect the way things move forward. Are we at risk of that happening? If it just dissipates away, that means the powerful elite kind of are holding on to it and using it.
Well, somebody is pushing this thing. And somebody's delaying this thing. So the first delay is the Florida case. That got dropped. Somebody did something. Somebody walked up and told them to drop it, number one.
We're talking way back.
Way back.
Yeah.
Then he comes here and Jeffrey Epstein coincidentally, mysteriously dies. So that's gone. Now we're still waiting for the documents. It took forever to come out. And when it came out, it wasn't a big deal, but not all of it has come out yet. There's still more to come out.
Okay.
So why is it taking this long? If it was you and I, it would be out already. What's going on?
It's a slow leak.
Slow leak. And again, I don't trust the government. They could give us whatever we want. How would you and I know if that's the actual evidence that they're disclosing?
We have to trust the government to a degree, though. To a degree. Just
you know what? I think there should always be a healthy
skepticism.
A healthy bit of skepticism when it comes to the government.
100%.
And there should be a healthy bit of cynicism.
Sure.
And I'm always skeptical of the government because they're employees. Right. And unfortunately, some of these employees aren't looking for justice. They're looking for, in their minds, a staircase to a better career. Like if I get this guy, then I get to go to this law firm. I get to make this career choice. So it's not always about justice.
Do you think the government used Jeffrey Epstein as an agent, used him to set honey traps, used him to manipulate rivals or other powerful people to get the ends that they want?
I have never heard of somebody with a serious federal case getting dropped just like that. So something magical happened, or the guy is working for the government. And
this is again, we're back in 03, 05.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, the magic continues after that, right?
Well, he commits more crimes after that. That's where it gets him in trouble. And that's why they filed charges against him later on.
And then when he gets incarcerated, and that may be the same incident, he has this unique, unheard of work release situation.
That's in Florida.
Yeah. Where he's able to go to prison or get out during the day, go run his business, go visit people. Come back at night.
It's a hotel stay.
It's a hotel. Mandatory prison only at night.
Right.
What the hell is that?
They interviewed the federal bureau, and one of the head agents said basically that because he had no prior criminal history, that he wasn't a danger, they assessed that he would go to a special place for people like him. I mean, very persuasive, powerful people, in this case, the government, doing favors for Jeffrey Epstein. It seems like that. The appearance itself doesn't look good, right? And that's why they did a turnaround on the second go-round. They went hard on him because now it's exposed. But why nobody asked, why was it the first time it didn't get prosecuted? Who stopped the prosecution? Who told Andrew Acosta it's above his pay grade, quote unquote? Why are people asking about that? And if people start asking more about that, they'll find out that this guy's a CI, a confidential informant. And that's very common, by the way. I'm not embarrassed to tell you, I've represented CIs.
Okay.
I've represented confidential informants. I'm representing confidential informants right now. Exposing
it. Tell us
crime.
vaguely, just generally speaking, what is a confidential?
So a confidential informant is somebody, think of it like an agent that is working for the government in exchange for a favor. So if you bust me for drugs, you would most likely come to me and say, RJ, I know you're a good guy. You made a mistake. We could either throw you in prison for a very long time or you come work for us.
Got it.
And I become a confidential informant. That's what Jeffrey Epstein was.
Right.
I believe that Jeffrey Epstein got out of a lot of trouble. I think that the government knew about his proclivities for younger women. And he was such a good asset that they gave him a pass on the first time, but the second time is they cut the
What
cord.
made him so valuable to the government? Was it his good looks? He obviously could talk
Connections.
well.
He had connections with Trump. He had connections with every billionaire. He was a great BS artist.
Schmoozer.
Great schmoozer, yeah.
And they're like, we could really use this guy.
I think so. I mean, again,
seems to make sense.
I go back to my logic. Why would something this serious, why would somebody step in? And based on my experience, I've never had a case like that where it would just mysteriously get dropped. Why would it get dropped like that? I've consulted many criminal defense attorneys about this. We're all scratching our heads.
Right.
The only thing that I could think about is, based on my experience with CIs, we get preferential treatment. My clients' cases are going to get dismissed. Do you know why? Because they're cooperating with the government.
They're adding value to the government's case.
And let me tell you something.
They're givers.
I'm going to give you an example. I got a call the other day thinking that my CI was committing a crime. So I called my client and I asked this person, are you committing a crime? And I resolved it. What's the point? They were going to take her off as a CI. They warned me. So they'll do whatever it takes to keep you as their agent, including getting charges dropped, giving you warnings, if you're that much of an asset. And then when you're done, they discard you, like Whitey Bulger, who was the Boston Mafia head. He was a CI, a confidential for years. He would run the mafia, kill people, and then snitch. He was a double agent. I'm contending Jeffrey was the same. He was a pedophile and an agent at the same time.
And the government most likely in that scenario knew of his proclivities,
of course.
Knew of his inappropriate.
It was just a matter of time. They probably had a meeting saying, you know what, we're getting sick and tired of this piece of garbage.
Well, that made him vulnerable to them too. So it made him even more valuable as an asset because they can hold that above his head.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
they could hold that above his head. But here's the thing. At some point, the government draws a red line. You can't kill people, except for Whitey Bulger, which was strange. And they cut it off at some point with Whitey.
Different era.
But now, no. They won't let you commit crimes. They won't let you keep doing what you're doing, okay? So I think that...
Maybe some little crimes here and there?
Sure. But again, when your value runs out, which is what happened to Epstein, I think his value ran out. People started detaching themselves.
Well, he became a media headline again.
Nobody was talking to Jeffrey Epstein. So what happens? His value dropped. There's no use in him anymore. And then at that point, he mysteriously dies. Right? Mm-hmm. So you tell me, is that a coincidence? that all of a sudden his value dropped, he has no more information, and he dies. Now, is it possible that he killed himself because he thought life was over? Maybe, but his lawyers said he was in up spirits the day before. His brother said that he would never have a suicidal bone in his body, okay? And that people that knew him, and I don't know if you know about narcissists, narcissists won't kill themselves, not because they love themselves. They have a grandiose feeling of themselves. He was a narcissist. He thought he was going to beat the case. He thought that this was the agreement wasn't going to be voided. He was in positive spirits, according to his lawyer. And then the next day he's dead.
Wow. It's seriously mind-boggling to think that there wasn't this massive conspiracy and honey traps and assets behind this. Seems like it makes a lot more sense than the more Occam's razor, simpler approach of, no, he just had this problem with underage girls. And he was a connector and a socialite.
So do you remember a politician by the name Gary Hart? He ran for president.
Yes.
Gary Hart had a picture called Monkey Business with a young girl. That was taken by some agent. Same thing with...
what does that mean? It was taken by an agent.
These are all people are setting him up. These are people have compromise.
You mean there was
a
compromise?
Yeah.
There was a
compromise.
Secret photograph of him?
Well, somebody took that picture to compromise him from running for president,
like
right?
a hotel room type of situation?
I'm not sure who, but the point is the government or has agents that have politicians have compromise. They have people that they hire, whether it's Cambridge Analytica getting information for Donald Trump, whether it's the CIA getting information for Biden because the CIA works for Biden. Information is power. So the more information you have, the more dirt you have on your opponent, obviously you stay in power.
So you trap them in an uncompromising position in some secret room with a beautiful young lady, and then you show them...
Not the lady. So there's two types of CIs. There's one where you flip. You ever heard of flipping? Flipping means we got you, come work for us, or you go to prison, right?
Yeah.
Typical mafia.
Catch me if you can.
Okay, catch me if you can, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's
spoiler alert.
And the second thing is if they come up to you and they say that they got you in a situation, a politician, that's different. I don't think the government sets you up for that. I think that's a covert, clandestine thing that nobody talks about. There's no part of the government that they're going to say we have that.
No, but there's a darker aspect of areas they can reach into and get stuff done that they also don't take ownership of.
Exactly.
It has to be.
I've seen it. Like if they're doing surveillance on you, okay, watch this. They're doing surveillance because they think you're drug dealing, and then all of a sudden you're cheating on your wife. They got photos of that now.
Right.
They got photos.
Right.
And they could use that to compromise you.
Exactly.
Because you don't want to budge. And all they got to do is, well, take a look at this photo, Tony. You want to reconsider? And now they got you compromised.
Yes.
The government does that in every surveillance investigation case.
Seems like it would be effective.
We do that too as criminal defense attorneys. I investigate you, so when I put you on a stand, I could get your dirt out.
Got it.
We all do it.
Okay.
But the difference is the financial resources of the government
Right.
completely outweigh what I got in my pocket.
It's endless.
It's endless.
Yeah.
I can't compete against the government. I could only find out so much information
Right.
about you, but the government could find out anything they want.
Right.
So it's an unfair fight.
That
That's why 99% of the cases, the federal government always wins.
Okay, so under this theory of the case, the government had him killed?
I don't know. I don't know who had him killed. I don't know if he committed suicide. All I'm telling you is...
Maybe they told him you got to commit suicide.
All I'm telling you is that the facts don't make any logical sense. I'll go over it again. He was in good spirits with his lawyers. His lawyers told him that. His brother said he doesn't have suicidal tendencies. I believe he has narcissistic personality disorder based on a lot of conversations and watching him and based on my experience. And then on top of all that, you have a lot of coincidences. The video goes out. The security guards are napping, taking a nice long nap. He has a lot of blanket with him, enough to kill himself. And then allegedly when he does kill himself, he has an injury that cannot be related in any way to a suicide according to Dr. Bodden. So if you ask me from a logical perspective, is it logical that he committed suicide? No, I don't think it's logical. Do I know who killed him? I do not.
Can I ask a question? Had he been sentenced already when he committed suicide?
Absolutely not. The case was ongoing. It was in the middle of the case, and he was fighting, and they were just filing for a bail motion.
Yeah, there's no way he's going to...
He was filing for a bail motion, and the lawyers told him that there's a good chance you're going to get bailed out.
He's not going to kill himself.
No.
Short of even knowing what his fate is
No.
yet. He's not going to do that. He's going to wait.
Too early.
He needs to see the sentence. Then he needs to appeal.
Yes.
No way.
So you know what our audience could do? This would be really cool. Google this. There was a guy that was found guilty. And as soon as he was found guilty, he popped a cyanide pill in his mouth and killed himself. And this is on Google. You can watch it. It's on YouTube.
Sure.
So that makes sense to me. Like Epstein doing something like that, waiting for the verdict. Yeah. But a guy like that, so cocky, with a dream team like he
who's
did,
escaped every situation,
escaped everything. And his lawyers are telling, by the way, we're going to get you bail. We got some shot. He's going to kill himself the next day?
No, he's planning on what country he's going to flee to, I think.
Possibly.
He's an escape artist. He's gotten out of every other thing before.
Or he could have just been arrogant and stayed in the U.S. and fought it, just like Bill Cosby did, and just like everybody else has. Yeah, Bill Cosby's got enough money to take off. He didn't take off.
It doesn't add up that he would commit suicide.
Yeah,
it just doesn't.
I mean, Weinstein hasn't committed suicide. Cosby didn't commit suicide. Why? I mean, why would he commit suicide in the middle of the game? The game is not over. Why would he call it quits?
What would his sentence have been?
20 plus years. Man, I think even maybe life based on statutory time, but he wasn't there yet.
Well, Ghislaine got 20.
Yeah.
Same crimes, right? I mean,
she's
aiding and abetting.
At least 20 years.
She's not the primary actor in the
No. Crimes. Well, she was an aider and abetter, and I'm sorry, I'll take it back. I think somebody said it was 200 years to life or something on the Epstein case. 200 plus years, which is consecutive years, and that makes complete sense. 10 victims times 20, yeah, that makes sense.
Right. But he would take that because he'd be planning on a way to escape.
I don't know. I do know that it makes no sense for him to kill himself. Again, I'm not alluding that I know anything. It just doesn't make any sense.
I think most.
By the way, switching it to Scott Peterson. Scott Peterson hasn't committed suicide yet.
He hasn't, right?
No, and he is maintaining his innocence. And so, people that have hope, whether it's real or not, they don't commit suicide.
Right.
And he had hope. So all I'm saying is it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense at all.